Jonah Hill was recently called out by his ex as being mentally manipulative and cruel. Well, it looks like she isn't the first and more likely won't be the last. Welcome to Beyond the Screen, I am Nate, and today we're breaking down the top 10 celebrities who called out Jonah Hill. Number 10. Robert Pattinson. Alright Team Edward, time to cozy up with a fuzzy wolf pelt from your recent enemy, and check this out. Robert has been stealing the show on the silver screen since being thrust into the mainstream following his role as Edward Cullen in the Twilight franchise. But recently he's donned the costume of a different Bat-themed character, this time as DC's newest Batman. The 3-hour film was released last year and received incredible reviews. The only sour one was from Jonah Hill. You see, during the casting process, Jonah was actually offered the role as one of the 3 main villains of the film, Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. And according to Robert, he turned down DC several times, apparently wishing to avoid the multi-contract deal that comes with playing a comic book character. Ryan Gosling follows this same principle and is the main reason that Jared Leto played the Joker in 2016's Suicide Squad rather than himself, which is... Sorry, I just get a weird flashback whenever I talk about that movie. Ugh. Jonah went on to say that his choice was well warranted as the film style and tone didn't really fit the type of performance that he wanted to give as the flightless bird-themed villain. Instead, they thought it would be a good idea to put Colin Farrell in a fat suit for 10 years, and Robert doesn't care for Jonah much anymore. So, there you go. Number 9. James Franco. James may exist in a small pocket of cancellation thanks to him being unable to keep his hands to himself, but he shared his opinion on Jonah after starring across from him in the 2015 drama thriller True Story. The film followed the true story of a disgraced New York Times reporter named Michael Finkel, who meets an accused killer, Christian Longo, who has taken on Frank's identity, but his investigation morphs into a game of cat and mouse. The film was underpromoted at the time and flew relatively under the radar. This would end up being the last time that these two ever collaborated, as James claims that Jonah was no longer the joyous man he once knew on set. He took the role very seriously, so much so that the project was treated as work and not a collaboration between 2 old friends. James was hoping to spend some time with Jonah off set, but was instead ignored and made to feel like he was Longo. In one of his final interviews, when asked about the project, James calls out Jonah by name as being wonderful on screen but quiet off set. Oh well, James did some gross stuff and this is probably the first time you've heard about him in a while, whereas Jonah... Yeah, never mind. Number 8. Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper may be getting paychecks for playing the Build-A-Bear Come-to-Life Rocket Raccoon in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, but most hopefully know him from the Hangover trilogy, one of the greatest comedy trilogies of all time. This trilogy follows 3 friends trying to piece together the wild night that they had before. They lose their friends on roofs, they steal monkeys, and Ken Jeong is in it, so yeah, it's pretty good. What many people may not know is that the role of Alan, played by Zach Galifianakis, was actually offered to Jonah Hill over 3 times before the team finally gave up. While there was no specific reason that he didn't want to participate in the project, a low-budget flick called Cyrus was released not long after The Hangover started production. It seemed that Jonah wanted to work in a more serious role instead of participating in what ended up being one of the highest-grossing comedy trilogies of all time. Cyrus was an okay movie, and I own it, so, you know, they had some money made from it. Bradley Cooper doesn't care how good it is, though. Not only did Jonah deny them 3 times, but doing it without explanation is just plain rude. Bradley actually attempted to give Jonah an olive branch and get him to make a brief cameo in The Hangover Part 2, but he denied that appearance too, and instead the role went to Paul Giamatti. So, Number 7. Miles Teller. Miles and Jonah worked together on a flick in 2016 called War Dogs, based on a true story of 2 young men, David Pecuz and Ephraim Vitaroli, who won a $300 million contract with the Pentagon to arm American allies in Afghanistan. It received massive critical acclaim, and I personally loved every single minute of it. According to Miles, his time on set with his co-star Jonah was interesting to say the least. Apparently, Jonah was actually livelier on this particular set than in more recent movies, which led to himself and Miles becoming very close. Whenever he is asked about the project, he takes a moment to shout out his partner in crime, Jonah Hill, claiming that the picture would never have been as successful were it not for his involvement. With the recent news that Jonah may be the baddest apple of them all, though, he's surely going to be revising that statement whenever asked about the project in the future. Number 6. Russell Brand. Get Him to the Greek was an ambitious spin-off movie that was released in 2010. It centered around two characters from the film Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Russell Brand, who played Aldous Snow, the man who steals Sarah from Jason Segel, and Jonah is their waiter slash Aldous' biggest and strangest fan at the Hawaiian resort that we spend most of the movie in. Get Him to the Greek takes those characters and gives them room to live and breathe. We find out that Jonah's character is actually an intern at a record label who is tasked with accompanying Aldous Snow to a concert at LA's Greek Theater. The flick is filled with outlandish set pieces, wild nights out, and Jeffries. Whenever Russell is asked about his opinion on the movie, he calls it his magnum opus. He feels his performance during the flick was the best representation of his acting skills, being able to be gross and funny at the same time. He's called out Jonah for making time on set difficult, as Jonah is an improviser and he would change lines and throw Russell off a lot. Most of the improvised moments made it into the final project and is probably the majority of the reason that the flick did so well. Number 5. Sam Rockwell. Sam had the joy of working with Mr. Hill on one of his worst movies ever made. The Sitter, a comedy released in 2011, starred Jonah as the titular sitter Noah, coaxed into babysitting the kids next door, only to be forced to drag them into a wild night that they could never forget. I personally enjoy this movie. There are some really positive moments that teach people about accepting differences and being your best self, but it's also got genitals being set on fire, no snow, and a lot of swearing, so I get why it has a 22% on Rotten Tomato. The main antagonist of this movie is played by Sam Rockwell, who you may know from movies like Mr. Right, Jojo Rabbit, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This man is a tremendous performer and is probably one of the better parts of the movie. He just wants his frickin' Fabergé egg back! Jonah made Sam's time on set insanely difficult thanks to Jonah constantly breaking character whenever he made eye contact with Sam. A scene where Sam grabs Jonah's face had to undergo over 20 takes because they just couldn't keep it together. Nobody cared about the delays, however, because something tells me everyone on the crew kinda knew what they had gotten themselves into. Number 4. Channing Tatum. In 2012, Jonah and Channing Tatum starred in a comedy reboot of the classic crime series 21 Jump Street for a more modern audience. The film received massive success at the box office, and it was quickly picked up for the sequel treatment. The sequel ended up being one of the few examples in Hollywood history of the second movie being better than the first. It made a lot of money and it was really funny, which is why it was so surprising to hear that the planned threequel, 23 Jump Street, was canned by Sony Studios. The main reason being, well, it was too ambitious for Jonah. Third entry in the franchise was going to be a massive crossover between two Sony properties. Jonah and Channing were set to cross paths with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith's characters from the Men in Black trilogy. The leaked script told the story of Jonah and Channing's characters investigating a new substance at a university, only to discover that the suppliers are extraterrestrials being hunted by the Men in Black. The idea of Jonah and Channing wearing the suits and shades while holding comically large weapons makes my soul sing with joy. But a script was written and ultimately the studio thought it would just not make any money and end up being a misstep in the franchise. Apparently Jonah actually had something to do with this though. While Channing was really excited about the project, Jonah thought the whole thing was going to be a big pain in the butt, and his under-enthusiasm made the studio nervous to go forward with what would have probably been one of the best movies in the last 10 years. I mean, you can't get those images out of your head now, can you? Instead, Sony decided to reboot Men in Black with Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth, and that just needs to be burned and shredded and just gone from existence. Needless to say, Channing has held a grudge towards Jonah ever since he was robbed of the opportunity to fight space aliens alongside Will Smith, and he refuses to ever collaborate with Jonah in the future. Number 3. Jennifer Lawrence. Katniss Everdeen is the role that launched Jennifer's career into what it is today. Since starring in the live-action adaptation of the novel The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Jennifer has been asked to star in films in every genre there is. The film Mother is an introspective horror thriller. She's been in Oscar bait movies like Silver Linings Playbook, and most recently she starred in a Netflix project called Don't Look Up as the leading lady alongside Oscar winner Leonardo DiCaprio. The film received wonderful reviews, and I personally had a great time watching it. One role in particular that was pretty well done was that of Jonah Hill. Jonah played the advisor to Meryl Streep's president character, and he steals every single scene he's in. According to Lawrence though, it will be the last time that she ever works with Jonah in her life, because when asked about the process of filming with the comedian turned serious actor, she said it was just really really difficult. Jonah had a tendency to improvise his lines on set, which would cause the fellow cast to break over and over again. Now, while jokes may be a fun inclusion at times, filming schedules can be pretty tight, and he caused 12-hour days to become 15-hour days. Jennifer may have had fun on set, but she has gone on record saying if she ever needed him for a serious role, she's gonna get somebody else. Number 2, Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen is a big reason that Jonah even has a career. Seth wrote the script for Superbad with his writing partner Evan Goldberg, and he decided to cast a young Jonah as himself in the movie. The film made a lot of money, and it began a highly collaborative relationship between Rogen and Hill. They ended up working together on several projects over the years, from everything from Knocked Up in 2007 to Sausage Party in 2015. Sorry, I get a headache whenever I talk about that movie. And a craving for hot dogs. However, that would be their last collaboration after Seth discovered just how cruel his friend had become. During the Comedy Central roast of James Franco, Seth acted as the host for the event and called out his former buddy, making several jokes aimed at Jonah about his behavior since making a transition into the more serious roles when he starred in the 2011 Oscar bait flick Moneyball alongside Bullet Train star Brad Pitt. He wasn't the only one. Everyone on the dais that had worked with Jonah in the past were also making comments about his behavior before he came up to retort with just the driest jokes of the night. Since the news has broken about his ex coming forward with allegations of mistreatment on Jonah's part, Seth has stated that he hasn't, nor will he ever work with this new mean Jonah Hill anytime soon. And at number 1, it's Brad Pitt. Brad has been dominating the acting world for a long time now in everything from Fight Club to Bullet Train. He steals the show and he captivates the audience. In 2011, he starred alongside Jonah Hill and several Hollywood heavyweights for the Oscar bait movie Moneyball. The film follows Pitt's character, Billy Beane, as the general manager of the Oakland A's, who successfully attempts to assemble a baseball team on a lean budget by employing computer-generated analysis to acquire new players. I'm sorry, I'm so bored just saying that. The film received a slew of Academy Award nominations, including Best Performances by an Actor in both a leading and supporting role. Jonah's performance is considered to be one of the best of his career and was the role that launched him into Hollywood's A-list. But Brad has some things to say about that. Over the years, the two developed a close relationship, and at one point even hosting get-togethers at each other's houses. When being interviewed about Jonah's time on the project, Pitt acknowledged that his performance was great, but that Jonah's greatest skill is actually his ability to drink 2 bottles of no-no juice at once, calling out Jonah as a party trick master. And those are the celebs that called out Jonah Hill. Is there any good ones that we missed? Well, let us know in the comments below. If you made it to the end of this video, a Blu-ray copy of The Sitter will be in your mailbox in 2 to 3 business days. Thanks for stopping beyond the screen today. Hit that like button if you enjoy our content and want to see more, and we'll see you next time.